Kida is a name you hardly hear in today's lexicon. It is the full name of one Disney princess who hails from a lost empire that wasted away thousands of years ago beneath the seas during the time of Plato when he wrote about the legend of Atlantis, and one that stands mainly forgotten amongst Disney's mainstream brand of Disney princesses when we speak about them, hardly appearing in any other material except its very one. Of course, she isn't the only forgotten one, considering the likes of Princess Ilonwi from the Black Cauldron, but then again, that film is on a whole nother level of remembrance for the wrong reasons. That almost costed the studio, where I just decided to save the forgotten in the case of her and the rest of the film. Where in the case of Kida, just like the title of the film says, is more about the lost princess from a lost empire that actually disappeared, actually being remembered in today's society since the film is as old as me and was actually decent for the time. Where this video is specifically done for the recognition of such characters and actual princesses, because the lineup uses the term loosely and regards the heroines who show unique qualities and print the most money based on name recognition. That my continued gripe with the Disney princess brand just rotates several characters who may or may not be princesses like Mulan and Pocahontas, and doesn't seek to include actual princesses figures like the likes of Kida, where I need to remind ourselves over time of its true importance. Because how can you not include someone like her when she looks like that? A true warrior princess who has outlived every other princess in age since she predates modern civilization by over 8,000 years, making her one of the oldest Disney characters to date. One that becomes queen in the end to honor her father's legacy and move her people to a better future amongst the surface. Kinda like Elsa, who is also a princess in her film and becomes queen, reconnecting with everyone in the end, except how she's special because Frozen gets its own branded status and thus doesn't need to even be included in the lineup, and how Kida can't on the other hand because marketability and unsuccessful franchise. Gee, thanks, we were this close to even have her represented, but you know, gotta do what's best for the brand. I also got most of this idea humming after talking about Rourke in full detail, how we can have an antagonist with practical views from the 20th century clash with those prior generations before, with Milo standing in the way, getting to know and understand their culture with a girl who seeks to save it when her father also does not want to. So it's a story of becoming better than your past, seeking beyond the failures that have been and looking at what could be, fighting for what's right when the situation does not suit who you are. So when you look at the behind the scenes of Atlantis, you see how they dedicate themselves to create a princess that can stand out in both physical and mental features, designed to have influences from various other cultures of the world at the time, and being based on other features models had when creators looked at different magazines, with her blue tattoos based on her tears when they were lost to the sea and also lost her mother.
Just as far as Kida's design and the Atlanteans in general, what we tried to do is find a mixture of different cultures. I made her nose just a little bit wider than the average Caucasian girl. I didn't want her to look like the girl next door. I worked very hard to find traits that I thought were attractive, and one of the things I thought was attractive was these full lips. I think it's exotic, and it's also, even in our modern times, considered a very attractive. When I looked at models in magazines and stuff, I noticed that a lot of them, no matter what their other features, had very full lips.
Also, of course, being based on her actress, Cree Summer, who had been doing voices since she was 12, bringing in that personality that Kida had, with a playful, intimidating appearance that is curious to learn and interact. Such curiosity begins at the start of Atlantis, when she was saved to be preserved under the sea from complete destruction, a time when she was but a child, watching her mother get chosen by the heart of Atlantis to save it all, unfortunately lost for eternity for her sacrifice, while she and her father and the rest of the city were forced to live underground what would feel like eternity. From there, she spent time training to be like a warrior and leading other groups outside the boundaries to prevent outsiders from doing harm, as their pet Leviathan had done over the centuries, until Milo and the rest of the crew came in, healing this new figure with the crystal and finding more about them. That this moment is where she manages to connect with a surface dweller who knows many languages as a linguist and must carry some knowledge that could help their civilizations from total collapse. Because although they might have been preserved, it doesn't mean that they would live. Knowing the difference between surviving and living, being stuck down here wasting away with what is left that is slowly getting lost. As we start to learn with her relationship with her father, much in their society has been repressed, preventing outsiders from any knowledge that they could steal, as he knew the heart of men like Rourke for their own profitable gain. A relationship where she thinks different politically from her father, wanting to do something to help rather than keep it hidden for what he has, to be better than her father but also not disrespecting him, as another trait shown to us that she is a loving daughter who only wants the best for her society and wants him to realize that we can do better rather than the mistakes that he made over thousands of years ago.
We come up with ideas that are about her personality and how to play a scene, which with her has a lot to do with subtext, because a lot of her dialogue could sound very firm and maybe a little too stoic, and she could come off really one note if she wasn't played right. But what we've been able to do is find what's inside of and what's behind her words and the emotions that she expresses externally, to find the subtext in her relationship with her father. For example, she disagrees with her father's politics, and yet she cares for him. And so even as she's arguing with him, she's helping him to be comfortable and wiping his face with a damp cloth and dimming the lights and trying to care for him.
Like, we get to know that she is a very intelligent woman, capable of understanding multiple languages and speaking them, because Atlantean is based on the root dialect, with her own skills navigating through the rough terrain, but also still uneducated in her own ways and those of the surface that she seeks to know. This is very apparent with her meeting with Milo, seeking to know all the answers of her own society and of his, knowing that she can't even read her own language or know how certain machines work until he himself taught her, a guy who only studied these things on the surface throughout a book. But we all know that doesn't stop her from learning, having the courage and conviction to do right for her people. Because one of the great things about her as a princess compared to the others is that she's more involved politically than they could ever be. I know they probably could be to some extent, but they're all focused on the loving relationship journeys, and that's how they get there. Or instead, in the case of Kida, she's actively involved in trying to make her people better, actually involved within the government of society, and contrasting with her father, as we just spoke about, which is more than enough, you could say, that an actual princess could do. What we also notice about her is that she's very blunt about what she sees, making observations about his appearance and also the way he speaks in Atlantean.
Boorish, provincial, and you speak it through your nose.
Showing us more of her playful side that can be considered as insulting and intimidating, but also know that her heart is in the right place when she has a relationship with him at the end. That despite being a princess that could be considered to be regal and soft, she is just very open about what she sees, even if it could be considered to be an insult. This is also where I would like to bring up the basis of her name and the interaction with our current environment. Her name Kida is based upon the Kiowa Native American name, meaning raising away the darkness, which is exactly what her role is throughout the film, only halfway through the entire events discovering what was lost to become found by her and Milo.
There's a side of her that's very serious and passionate about her goals in life. But there's also another side of her, and that's a real playful side, and we see that part of her come out when she's with Milo.
If it weren't for her efforts, the Atlanteans would never have access to their own flying machines once Milo showed her how to activate it properly, or other truths of the crystal that powers the city to be alive. Yet then, how we learn Rourke is the bad guy of the film who wants the heart of Atlantis and deprive those like Kida of the truth that they wanted, reminding us that her father is also in the right, thinking that the true hearts of man are very dangerous and destructive when he threatens to kill him and lock her up as a tool to their advantage. The moment that leads them to the chamber where her heart still lies. Still the same energy that glowed when her mother was lost all those years ago, when it's surrounded by the faces of the kings long past in Atlantis' history. And it's here where she gets the same calling by the heart like her mother did long ago to protect Atlantis, where it has a mind of its own directing her to ever so slightly towards it and telling Milo that all will be alright. This of course isn't really the voice of Kida, who's been hypnotized under the heart, but rather the heart itself telling Milo that it knows what must be done to protect it. Its powers are too great to let it unleash itself among society, and it's up to him to rescue it from Rourke's cold-blooded hands. That in this moment she becomes a blue crystallized creature that is the physical embodiment of the heart and protector of Atlantis, that gets contained to sell to the black market or other nations until he makes the call to go after him once the king dies. That Nadak tells Milo that she could be forever lost if remained bonded to the crystal, and cannot let that be since it's the only love that he has left, knowing that all his efforts was really to protect her from the fate of her mother that these villains are trying to exploit that caused their own destruction so many years ago.
The love of my daughter is all I have left. My burden would have become hers when the time was right.
What I think this represents is how, because of the heart has a conscience of its own, thriving off the people who inhabited it long ago, shows how important her role is in their society like her mother was, choosing the ones who best represent Atlantis' interest to defend its people and bring it to their destiny as they choose fit. And that's where Milo gets the encourage to go after them and rescue it before it's too late. Also in the ensuing battle that causes Rourke's death, that the volcano also awakens and threatens to fully destroy Atlantis once and for all. But with their own valiant efforts, efforts, Kida's crystallized form awakens to harness the energy around them and activate the stone guardians that creates this protective shield around the city to once again save it from the incoming magma. The act of all spirits of the past coming together with Kida to rise to the occasion in defense of their people and Milo's crew, where finally, because they had succeeded, the heart returns Kida back to her human form down to Milo's arms, who holds her in a big embrace after they left her the same bracelet that her mother had that they took her long before. Now knowing that her father also passed, but also done in service that they saved her people, and Milo's new commitment to her and Atlantis as she takes the mantle of becoming queen, finishing the stone of her father to join the other ancestors as the heart now takes its place over the city, with many of their technology once again fully restored. That as a princess, she became a great symbol of hope and change for their people, fulfilling that role now as their new queen to bring peace to all civilizations, learning from their past for a better tomorrow, honoring her father, but also becoming her own with the new choices made to free them for what they did. Something that was also represented in Milo's return, where although that's just a stitched together series from a now abandoned TV show, it continues to show her resilience of curiosity to be better, and leading on a new future shared with all people no matter who they are, for knowing that the technology once used for destruction can now be used for peace and improvement of all societies, and how at the end of all things, she represents the very best of what a princess could be, when we actually see one involved with the matters of their people both politically and socially, that even above all other Disney princesses, she's the one who demonstrates a value of care in that very role that we should actually expect, and a major factor to why she should be included because she's one of the only ones who have acted within the best interests of their nation, physically being capable of it and also regally inclined to lead it. For no matter what we think, we can all agree that Kida is the lost princess who found her way back home. And I'm all done. Goodbye.